takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's Monday. It's FPC Radio Live. It is the 21st of March. We're almost through this month, which is incredible. NFL free agency is in full swing. We had some more deals and trades and all that you can imagine over the weekend, including Deshaun Watson getting sent to the Cleveland Browns. And of course, for all you hockey fans out there, if you saw in the intro there, today is NHL trade deadline day, and you're going to be sitting around the house or at work and not feel like doing any work, then you can tune into our live NHL trade deadline special starting at noon Eastern today, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be breaking down the trades that obviously already happened and the ones that will be happening during that time frame leading up to the 3 p.m. deadline. So definitely check it out. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be here on Full Press Radio and, of course, Full Press NHL on Twitter. Check it all out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, John, good morning. Deshaun Watson's a Cleveland Brown. How about that?
That's very interesting. I mean, we were talking about Atlanta or New Orleans on Friday. It seemed like a done deal that he was going to go to one of those two places. But once Cleveland stepped up and guaranteed all $230 million of his contract, I guess there's no other choice but to go to Cleveland. And, you know, again, a strong quarterback staying in the AFC. And it's just the way that it was handled, you know, might be considered a little bit sleazy. He's going to be paid $1 million this year. There's going to be a $45 million bonus, so that if he gets tagged for 4 or 6 games, part of a suspension, it won't hurt him that much in the pocketbook. And then starting next year, it's $46 million a year. Now, I don't know if the league is going to try to hit the sheet and say you can't do that or whatever. But yeah, it was a surprise. It really was. And look, he already becomes the best quarterback in the history of the Cleveland Browns since they reinvented themselves in 1999. I'm not going to get into,
Well, I mean, the competition isn't that strong, let's be honest.
Not very good.
Tim Couch, Baker Mayfield, I mean.
Brady Quinn. Brandon Steedon. All first-round picks. I mean, and Johnny Manziel. They in 22 years, they drafted a quarterback in the first round, 5 times. They kept trying. They just couldn't nail it. That kind of shows that it's not easy to draft a quarterback even in the first round and get it right. They never got it right.
I wonder why that's the case, John. It's probably because evaluating quarterbacks goes beyond just looking at a box score.
Exactly.
And a stat
sheet. Yeah. There's a lot more than that. I mean, if you could do an MRI of the heart and the brain, that might have something to do with evaluating these quarterbacks. But yeah, that was, to me, I guess that's the biggest news of the offseason because it's a genuine surprise. I mean, Rodgers staying in Green Bay, not a surprise. Brady coming back, not a surprise to me. Russell Wilson getting moved, not a real surprise. Devontae Adams getting traded, that was a surprise, but he's a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Deshaun Watson getting moved to Cleveland, that was a shocker when I heard that. I just assumed he was going to Atlanta or to the New Orleans Saints, and, that was really a curveball.
Well, think about this. I mean, Devontae Adams trade, that feels like it was weeks ago. Hell, it feels like it was months ago that Brady announced his return, and it was 8 days ago. Now, it's just this NFL offseason, and I know we say it every single year, it always dominates the headlines. I mean, it's such a powerful just mechanism, the NFL. I mean, anything it does, anything it produces, it produces success. And again, it's not necessarily because of them. I mean, we've talked about it many times. They can trip over their own feet and
mm-hmm.
still land on their feet and somehow with more money in their pocket. So, but yeah, it's been a wild off season already, and we've seen so much, so many moves already. And the surprising part about all this with Deshaun Watson was the fact that, like you said, we were at a certain point. I had written a story that he got traded to the Falcons just because, well, it seemed like it was just inevitable at this point. And in very 28-3 fashion. And I know sometimes that gets beaten to death, but in this case, it's very applicable, in my opinion. I mean, you saw the Atlanta Falcons essentially go as far. I mean, they went as far as request Matt Ryan to delay his bonus payment till today,
Hmm.
which you don't do that unless you're progressing fairly well on a deal. But a team that Deshaun Watson had reportedly eliminated earlier in the week or just the day prior, came back with, and you mentioned it, $230 million guaranteed. And look, John, I'd be more, I'd care less if these teams and just said, look, value the talent. That's it. Don't give me this dog and pony show about doing your due diligence and then have his lawyer say that he was never contacted. Like, how can you do your due diligence and not actually contact the lawyer of Deshaun Watson? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
This whole situation, again, I mean, it's very obvious. It's not trying to be hidden. I mean, it's not spoken of, but clearly, talent outweighs whatever the hell you do. I mean, Deshaun Watson literally just got $230 million guaranteed after essentially having a suspension for a year. He was
Hmm.
forced to not play for his actions. That look, despite the grand jury not deciding to indict him, that isn't absolving him. It doesn't mean he's innocent or guilty necessarily. It just means that the grand jury just didn't have enough evidence and chose not to do it. Whatever. The point is, it just goes to show that obviously the NFL and look, I mean, it is what it is. They're a private business. They can do what they want. I'm not here. I don't run an NFL team, so I can't tell an NFL team who or who not to sign. But don't sit here and pretend like you have the utmost commitment to this or that, and then do the exact opposite. You know what I mean? Like that's what
Hmm.
bugs me about it. Like, look, we all know that this is about money and this is about winning. So everything else, short of someone killing someone, let's be honest, pretty much anything's fair game in the NFL. I mean, it
Yeah.
is what it is. And
If
we
if you can play, yeah, they'll accept you back gladly.
and it's not going to change, John. So I mean, I
Oh,
understand why people are upset. It irks. I understand like there's a certain number of Cleveland fans that this is really upsetting them, and I don't blame them. I'm not necessarily saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that like at this point, we just got to accept it because the NFL's not going to change. I mean, it isn't. I mean, we can get upset and waste all this energy, arguing about where their motives are. We know where their motives are. You know what I mean? It's about winning and it's about money. And guess what?
mhm,
Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, which gives Cleveland a better chance to win. And clearly, seems like he's a desirable teammate as well. And obviously, we can't speak to his relationship with his teammates because we don't know. So there's no place for us to say that. So there's players that gravitate towards him, and again, owners see that as, hey, guess what? I can print some money. That's essentially what it is. So, is it is it upsetting to see? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I don't blame people for being upset or anything like that. But the reality of it is this is what the NFL has been, and this is what it always will be. And short of someone killing someone, and in some cases, maybe even that's not enough to draw a line. Yeah, it's the NFL. It is what it is. We're still going to watch on Sundays, and as sad as it is that you're rewarding a guy that has these issues. Well, let's just put it this way: I'm glad it's not New England.
yeah, I mean, the thing about this is that, Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, who I believe is 80 years old, he's obviously a very wealthy guy.
Hmm.
You would think he'd step up and say, well, if it takes $230 million fully guaranteed to get him here, let's just do it. Rather than haggle over $80 million in guaranteed money. That would be a surprise, but some owners are just, set in their ways. They're not going to budge, and Cleveland was willing to do it. And Cleveland's in a desperate situation. Like I said, They've been in existence since 1999, and they've never had a good quarterback. I mean, so here they get a chance to get a great quarterback, and they've got a good roster. So they look at it and say, well, we can win the division. We can make a run in the postseason because we've just improved the quarterback position by leaps and bounds. So, you know, I mean, Colin Kaepernick can't get into the league because he kneeled, and maybe he's not a good quarterback anymore. We don't know. We haven't seen him play since 2016,
Mhm.
2017. So we don't know what his skill set is, but he doesn't even get a chance. Um, Calvin Ridley's going to serve a year suspension for gambling on his own team, and Deshaun Watson just signed the biggest contract in league history by far. And he sat out last year, essentially, like you said, he in a suspension. I know he's not going to face criminal charges, but he is going to face civil charges, and a lot may come out in that unless he just pays all the girls off.
Well, he can
Hush money, but
certainly afford it.
he can
Let's just
afford
put it
yeah. I mean,
that way.
he just got $45 million in a bonus,
Yeah.
so he can look at that and go, "Here's $1 million each, and I still got plenty of money left."
Yeah.
And but like you said, the NFL, they can't hurt themselves. They just do things wrong, and they come up smelling like roses. Right? It's too big to fail. It really is. It's the league that look at what all we've talked about the last 2 weeks is the NFL. And the thing is, with all these moves, it almost feels like it's choreographed because there's never two moves in one day,
Yeah.
right? Like,
It's always someone trying to one up each other.
Yeah, it's like Aaron Rodgers one day, okay, and then Russell Wilson the next day, and then Brady comes out of retirement.
Rodgers was in the news for about 30 seconds before everything trumped it. Like, I mean,
he's pissed.
Oh, he is pissed. He wanted to milk this. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He wanted.
He didn't get Pat McAfee that day.
Well, and the funny thing is not only did a trade that day, the Russell Wilson trade, overshadow it, but like his return is like plays second fiddle to Brady's return, which again, it's like it's kind of like little brothers, kind of like okay, always the big brother, always getting the attention type of thing. It's kind of it's a little comical. Like obviously, I can find some humor in it because like I'm obviously a Brady fan, and
I find it.
Go ahead.
I find it sad, but it's different in the NBA. I mean, once July 1 comes or whenever free agency starts, it just starts dropping, right? Kevin Durant is signing with the Nets. Oh, and Kyrie Irving is signing with the Nets.
But even that doesn't even touch.
It happens in like a 24-hour period. This is just dragged out. There's still other moves to be made. They're brilliant at what they do. They've absolutely dominated the news for the last 3 weeks in the middle of March Madness and NBA and NHL winding down the seasons and baseball, believe it or not, is in spring training.
It's incredible. It's the NHL trade deadline today. And over the last couple of days, the NHL has been, I mean, there's been moves after moves after moves. And folks, this will be a good opportunity for me to sit here and once again plug 12 p.m. Eastern time today on our YouTube channel, YouTube.com/C/full-coverage. You can listen to Mike Straw and a bevy of guests as they discuss the trades and deals and all that stuff going on. So 12 p.m., check it out. But yeah, anyways, NHL trade deadlines today, barely a mention of it. Everything that else is going on, the NBA is going on. I mean, the Celtics don't seem like they're ever going to lose again. I mean, the last time we spoke, and we spoke about 10 seconds about the Celtics, we thought they were pretty darn good. Well, guess what? They're still pretty darn good, but we don't talk about them because the NFL has dominated over the last couple of weeks. And look, there might be like a week lull soon, but then it's right into the draft. And again, the NFL will just continue to dominate. So, Cleveland, are they a better team today? Yes, because I do think from what we've seen, I do believe Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. But I mentioned it last week. Deshaun Watson isn't a sure thing. Like he had a really good season his last season. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. He had a very good statistical season his last season in Houston. And like I said last week, I personally don't believe that tier one quarterbacks will ever go 4-12 in a season, regardless of the situation around him. So it causes me to pause a little bit because he is still young. He has only 4 years of experience. And I have no idea what he's going to end up doing. What if he does go to Cleveland? What if the year off has impacted him more than we're anticipating? and he is essentially Baker Mayfield. Imagine how silly Cleveland will look having essentially traded that much capital for maybe the same guy or maybe a very marginal upgrade at the end of the day. And look, I mean, it's the Cleveland Browns, so even if this wouldn't have happened with any other team, would don't you kind of feel like this is like such a Browns thing that would happen? Like, I'm not certain this is going to work out because maybe just because it's the Browns, it has nothing to do with the actual player.
Yeah, a year off. There's going to be a suspension involved. Maybe just really never gets going in 2022. And they're going to move Baker Mayfield. What if he goes to Indianapolis, which has a really good offensive line and some decent weapons, not great weapons other than the running back. Their wide receivers are, I think, average. But what if Baker Mayfield goes to Indianapolis and has a really good year and
Mhm.
they go to the playoffs and Cleveland does it? Yeah, you've given up 5 draft picks, including 3 first-round picks to and commit $230 million in guaranteed money, yeah, that would be quite interesting. And again, the Browns, uh, they're the antithesis of the NFL. It seems like everything they do turns out to be wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I think the player is outstanding. And again, he's going to be 27 when the season starts, so he's so young. And I think that Kevin Stefanski's a good offensive coach, so he's going to the right situation in terms of that. And good, very good offensive line, excellent running backs, and see what they do with the wide receivers because obviously they cut OBJ last year and they cut Jarvis Landry so far this offseason.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm not certainly not anticipating him failing. I'm just saying, like, I'm not ready to, run to Vegas and put my money down on the Cleveland Browns. I need to see kind of, let me feel a little bit more comfortable about what I see actually on the field from Watson and that team. Whenever I see it, again, we don't know. It could be
You
September, it could be November. I mean, who knows? You know.
you feel more confident in Russell Wilson in Denver being more productive
Well, I mean,
than
he certainly has more history. You know
Mhm.
me, I'm not like some people are really, really high on Russell Wilson. I'm not that. Like, I think he's a fine quarterback. I just don't necessarily know if he's a guy to really elevate the entire team to a championship. Like, I think he can elevate them to be pretty good because that's what I saw in Seattle. But all
Mhm.
too often, and we saw this a lot, all too often it just never lasted. He would start strong. Like, I mean, again, let's go back to his start a year ago, not in 2021, but 2020. I mean, it, in week 7, week 8, halfway through the season, you're sitting here thinking like, "Hey, this guy looks like he's on his way to like a unanimous MVP, and then he absolutely fell off the map. And
Yep.
to me, that's just it's not a one time thing. We've seen him. I brought up some of the just odd moments in big situations that he kind of looks befuddled and kind of just out of sorts. And so to me, I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, Russell Wilson's a very fine quarterback. Um, some people think he is a stand up, say his name, first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm like, no, I don't believe that, not yet. But yeah, I would say I'd have a little bit more confidence in Russell Wilson just because again, he's done it for a longer period of time, and if Deshaun Watson can be Russell Wilson, i.e., some level of consistency, then yeah, that's a pretty nice career. So right now, yeah, I'd say Denver. I mean, Russell Wilson in Denver is probably a little bit more, but again, he did play last year, and Deshaun
Right.
Watson didn't. So you there, John? Did I lose you?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No, no.
okay, okay.
I'm just following your lead.
No,
I
no,
think
hey,
that
no, you're
yeah. No.
good. You're good. You're
We
good.
just we just look at all these quarterbacks in the AFC. It's incredible. I mean, I'm not a big Pro Bowl guy,
Yeah.
but for the 3 quarterbacks that are going to be voted to the Pro Bowl, of course, none of them will play. So you'll end up with less quarterbacks going to the game. But I mean, if you want to rank the quarterbacks in the AFC, I mean, I'm almost ready to put Josh Allen at number one because I think he's that good.
I I look, I saw actually, I wish I kind of had this. Man, I wish I had. I saw this yesterday, and I'll see if I can try to find the tweet. But someone tweeted out, and this is an example of how and I talked about this during the season, obviously, how I I like to use statistics after the fact because I think it can bring a bit clearer picture of like the bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of puts things into perspective that you see with your eyes, not necessarily predictive, but whatever. Um, it was fascinating to kind of get this even further confirmed that Patrick Mahomes, by far and away, I think it was like something up towards 28, 29%, created pressures by the quarterback, meaning how often did your quarterback A face pressure and B how often was it essentially the cause of the quarterback? And if you can
Right.
picture a graph, you get the y and the x axis right in the middle, and pretty much most of the quarterbacks are kind of huddled in the middle to the left, which indicates kind of it's not that high. Tom Brady's bottom left corner, which will
Yeah,
indicate to you
that's no
that
surprise.
he creates by far the fewest pressures on him. Patrick Mahomes is in a far right corner all by himself, and that
28%? That's
it's
incredible.
somewhere between 24 and 28, but relative to the
Wow.
rest of the league, I'll find it to you. If I can't get it up on the screen here, I'll send it to you so you can see it and just
Okay.
kind of see where it's at. Like it's incredible. And you would Aaron Rodgers has a slightly higher, a little bit higher percentage than Brady. There's
Mhm.
between them, it's a relatively significant, but he's obviously right with the rest of the NFL. Like I said, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is literally he's on Revis Island by himself. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So you know what? I might actually say it. Yeah, I think Josh Allen, because I think Josh Allen just does more. Like there's more on his shoulders each and every game. There's more dependent on him, and we've seen from eye test point of view, from a
Mhm.
statistical point of view. Patrick Mahomes obviously been, and this isn't. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I think he's still a really good quarterback, obviously, but he benefits from a lot of yards after catch. He has two guys that are perennial All Pro candidates, and sometimes they are All Pros and tight end Tyreek Hill and obviously I flip flopped them. Tight end Travis Kelsey and wide receiver Tyreek Hill. So all these things kind of add up to say, okay, well, if we're splitting hairs here, well, to me, it looks like Patrick Mahomes gets a little bit more help from his you know teammates and some of the issues that we think are people are always like, oh, what was Patrick Mahomes supposed to do with all that pressure? And we're sitting there talking about after the Super Bowl, it's like he created a lot of this. And you know what?
Yep.
This the data that, like I said, that was collected, it was from 2018 to 2021, so it was 3 years worth of data, not just one season. um, it's clear that yes, there's certain areas that he struggles in. Now he's been able to dig his ass out of the fire sometimes with, those crazy plays, but that's not sustainable. And that's one of my biggest issues with him, big picture, where it's like, okay, everyone wants to anoint him the best in the league. And I'm like, no, 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 let's hold up. I'm sitting here saying, like, okay, there's a lot of raw talent, the arm angles, all that stuff. Like you can get away with stuff, but as soon as teams start to catch up with him, and I think we started to see that in bigger stretches last year, certainly in the playoffs, it's going to be an issue because if you can't evolve your game, then you've already peaked. At this point, he's already peaked. If he can't evolve his game, he has peaked. Josh Allen has only been trending upward. I mean, each season
Mhm.
he's gotten better and better and better, and it's not as much, and he's not as dependent. And again, I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I mean, sometimes it's just the situation. Um, it's just he's the one that's less dependent and does more. I mean, he throws just as well. He produces just as well. He doesn't have the advantage of as much yards after the catch. He doesn't have, he doesn't create those pressures on himself, which negatively affect your team. So yeah, I mean, look, I guess long to make a short answer long, yes, I think Josh Allen might be the best quarterback in the NFC.
Well, the reason I think that too is he plays for a defensive coach in Sean McDermott,
Yes,
whereas
that
Patrick
too.
Mahomes plays
Well,
for an offensive
to be
coach in
fair,
Kansas City.
Brian Dayball
Granted, oh,
had a lot of influence,
yes,
and I think Sean McDermott, much like Belichick, isn't going to say no. We're a defense. Kind of like I'm
right.
paraphrasing this, but Pete Carroll said somewhat recently, like no, we're we're going to tailor players to our system. Well, okay, that can work if maybe you have college kids, but I like the Belichick philosophy of no, we're gonna make you we're gonna put you in a position to succeed. We're not gonna force you into a system. We're gonna tailor the system to you. And I think that's what McDermott and certainly Brian Dable. So I will say, he did have Brian Dable, which is a nice situation for him.
But the other thing I've seen with Josh Allen is accuracy has just improved every single year. Look, I compared him to John Elway, and you know my thoughts on John Elway. I still maintain if every quarterback was in the same situation at the same time, in other words, in the league at the same time with the same supporting cast, I think he may have been the greatest quarterback ever. I mean, he was that good. Um, his skill set, his leadership, toughness, smart. I mean, he had it all. And when I compare someone to John Elway, and I don't generally ever do that, that's about as much of a high praise. I think his teammates love him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mahomes' teammates love him as well. But I think the thing with the fiance, wife, brother, that's going to wear thin at some point. Whereas I don't even know who Josh Allen's dating. I mean, you never see any of that stuff with him, which I think is a good thing. And that playoff game, I thought he outplayed Patrick Mahomes just a little bit, but he outplayed him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, look, he played one of the greatest defensive mind in the history of the sport in 2 games last year, and scored 80 points in 2 games, and his team never punted.
Well,
so,
look,
I mean,
that regular
season,
regular season game, that second one against the Patriots was, we saw some of the best throws all season from a quarterback.
Yep.
And to your point, that was the biggest concern with Josh Allen was, is he ever going to hone in his accuracy? Like, I don't think you can learn accuracy. I think you can fine tune it. And I think early on, I a lot of people question is, well, is he an accurate quarterback? Well, I don't know. And I think we've seen over the last couple of years, yeah, he is an accurate quarterback. It's just, he had to learn mechanics. And sometimes, yeah, it takes a little bit. That's why it's like, you see some of these teams, nowadays, it's, you get a first round quarterback that they're expected to start right away. And well, if they don't win a Super Bowl, well, it's a failure. Well, no, I mean, that's not how it works. Some players take a little bit longer to settle in and find what they're doing. But right now, I mean, you look at Josh Allen on the field. He's got that, kind of just levelness that you want from a quarterback. You don't want quarterbacks to be too high or too low. So, one of my critiques, partly of Philip, that's kind of how Philip Rivers was. He was a really good quarterback, but he got far too emotional, too high and too low, and he obviously it translated to his game being up and down at times, certainly in high pressure moments. Brady, is like if it was an EKG, you would think the person was dead. That's essentially what it is, and you kind of see a little bit of that with Josh Allen and on all the really great quarterbacks. Now, again, I'm not saying that's where he's at, but those are the signs that you want to look for, especially early on. Doesn't mean he's perfect all the time. No, he's going to have his hiccups. He's a young quarterback. I mean, that's what you have to stress with people about Mac who want to throw the guy out the door after you just had the best rookie season of all the rookies that got drafted. Like, let it play out. He's a young kid.
Give it time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Josh Allen, to his credit, has taken that time. Like, look, if you want to just look at stats, again, I mean, a lot of people love to do it when it suits their situation, but the people that are complaining about Mac, well, guess what? Mac had better quote unquote stats than Josh Allen in their rookie season. And look where Josh Allen is now. I think people, even after that first year, were sitting there scratching their head saying, was Josh Allen really the right choice? Like, I think at that point they realized that, well, the other Josh wasn't the right choice either, but they were still questioning this Josh. Well, no one's questioning it now.
No.
So,
he's the best quarterback out of that draft class by far. Then I'd say Lamar's the second best one, and then Baker would be the third best one, and then the UCLA kid Josh Rosen, who I love. I don't even know if he's in the league anymore. If he is, he's like a practice quarterback. And then again, you get Sam Darnold, who I was never very high on because he was so turnover prone. But yeah, it's difficult to rate these guys at that young age. And like we were saying, just look at the AFC, man. You want to power rank the quarterbacks. You go Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert. I mean, they just did Deshaun, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's just like, okay, where does it end? It's just all these guys.
Well, I said it last week. The funny thing is, talking about a power struggle, and the best one happens to be in the other conference, in my humble opinion. Because, like I
The two
said,
best quarterbacks are still in the NFC. You're right. They are.
yeah, and like, look, I mean, I think, I think there's room to be gained. Again, and I say this all the time. It's not so much to me at this point when it comes to who's the best quarterback. It's not so much about what other quarterbacks do. It's what Brady does. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to concede. Like, to me, no one's going to surpass him as long as he's playing at the same level he's at. I don't care if,
Mhm.
like, Josh Allen goes out and has this wonderful season. Like, if Tom Brady goes out and has the exact same season he did a year ago, like he did 2 years ago, then I'm going to sit here and say, well, he's still the best because, like, as great as Josh Allen is, he, very obviously has not accumulated the knowledge. Like, as great as these young quarterbacks are, you can't sit there and tell me that they know and can understand defenses the way Tom Brady
No.
does. Like, no one does, and that's not a disrespect thing. It's just let's think in reality. So to me, it's not necessarily about what those guys do. It's going to be fun to watch the AFC. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's going to be really, really fun to watch these quarterbacks battle. I mean, look, they're not all going to be successes. Like I said, I mean, I, I think we all anticipate Deshaun Watson's going to be pretty darn good, but sure thing. I'm certainly not betting on anything being good in Cleveland. I mean, let alone forget about the players. I mean, outside of LeBron James, I mean, let's be real here. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
I
Tell
mean,
me about it. I picked them to win the Super Bowl last
yeah.
year.
Oh, I know.
I had the
I know.
I had the Rams in the Super Bowl, so give me credit for that. But then I said Cleveland's going to come into SoFi and beat the Rams in
Yeah.
the Super Bowl. If I didn't pick the Rams, it would have been a little bit. I still think they have a tremendous roster.
Well, and
But you're right.
that's the thing, though. It's like they have this tremendous roster and everything, but you're like, you know what? It's still Cleveland. It's still
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland,
Yep.
and it's just like wait and see what happens. So, but yeah. Anyways, like I said, one more time, tune in later today, starting at noon, 9 a.m. on the excuse me, on the West Coast. I'm getting I haven't had my coffee yet, John. I'm a
That's
little
true.
lacking of caffeine at the moment, so I'm a little discombobulated. But starting at noon on the East Coast, 9 on the West Coast, and whatever the hell Central Time is, I don't really care, but you can figure it out. Go to our YouTube channel, head to Full Press NHL on Twitter because we're going to be having our FPC NHL um, trade deadline special. Trade deadline today is at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, so plenty of moves have already been made. So we're going to definitely be breaking them down, and of course, breaking down whatever happens in the moment. So I'm sure there's going to be some stuff going on. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back Wednesday. I'm sure there's going to be 6 trades completed. Matt Ryan, who knows, John? This is going to be fun. I want this to happen just for the media meltdown in Boston. Malcolm Butler is visiting the
Yes.
New England Patriots, as is Leonard Fournette. So that could be interesting up there in England. So tune in on Wednesday. We will be back to break down whatever happens between now and then. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you then.